Rights to freedom is dead. We're coming to get our check.
Black First brothers and sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I'm your host, Afro Elite. Now, before we get started, please make sure that you guys are subscribed by hitting that subscribe button, hitting the like button, sharing this on your various social media platforms. For everything that you all do, I appreciate you very much. Now, a lot of videos have been put out. We've been talking about the situation with affirmative action a lot. I've given my 2 cents on it originally when the news first broke on our brother Black Alpha's space on Twitter. So you guys can definitely go to his page and check that out with my initial thoughts when the news first broke. But I came across this article and I thought it was interesting, so I wanted to share it. That way we can kind of see what the mainstream media is trying to put out, like the narrative that they're trying to put out about it, what they're trying to say about it. And I get to give my more in-depth analysis and more in-depth thoughts about it and commentary about the situation as we're reading the article as well. So without any further ado, let's get started. Affirmative action is over in the United States, but only for black people. It starts off saying, affirmative action as we know it is officially over. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled this week that race can no longer be considered as a factor in university administrations. And just to be clear, affirmative action as a whole isn't canceled. It's just the race part that the court is gutting. So like affirmative action as far as the other minorities, that means as far as being an immigrant, as far as being a woman, as far as being gay, all of these other things that put you in the minority category. The Supreme Court didn't rule against that, but they ruled against the race thing, so you guys know. Then it continues to say, affirmative action has always been divisive, but 2 recent cases involving Harvard and the University of North Carolina, UNC, are what finally killed it. The court ruled against both universities, siding with an organization called Students for Fair Admissions, who argued that race-conscious administrations at American universities constituted a violation of Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the part that bars discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. It's pretty obvious why the racial portion of affirmative action is important. It wasn't until the mid-1950s that the school segregation was finally outlawed, on paper at least. Well, and see, that's true. I'm glad they put that in there because a lot of things can be quote unquote outlawed on paper, but they're not really outlawed. Okay, they're still very much so in practice. You have the common law and then you have the law that's on the paper. And the thing is that the common law wins over the law that's on the paper because laws on the paper are just words on a piece of paper unless it's being applied, okay, and enforced. And the common law, those are the laws that get applied, and those are the laws that get enforced. So all discrimination is against the law on paper, but it's not enforced because discrimination is still the common law. So the common law and the law of the society is way more important than what the law is on paper because that's the actual law that is actually enforced. Now, continuing, it says, but contrary to popular perception, affirmative action isn't just a, quote, get in free, end quote, card for black post-secondary students. Women, people with disabilities, when they say women, so you guys know, by default, unless they specify otherwise, when they say women, they by default mean white women, all of the time, 100% of the time. Unless they specify what type of woman, when they say women, that means white women all of the time, okay? Women, people with disabilities, and other historically marginalized groups have all benefited from the court's recognition that circumstances beyond their control may exclude them from these institutions. But much like welfare, public housing, and other social programs created to help all vulnerable people, black students were made the poster children for affirmative action. And see, that's the thing. Black people are made the poster children for all government assistance, all welfare, all public housing, all social programs, affirmative action, all of that. Now, we're not the main people who benefit from these things. It's white women, they benefit the most from affirmative action. We can go on the list. We can actually pull up the data to prove that black people are not the main people who benefit from these things. But anytime someone talks about a social program, a welfare program, you automatically get the image in your head of black people. So I do agree with that. We have been made to be the poster children of that, despite the fact that it doesn't really make a difference because we're not the ones really benefiting from it. It continues to say, perhaps the most sinister end result of the racial stereotyping is the way it successfully pits blacks and Asian communities against each other. Now, I'm gonna pause right there and I'm gonna say, black people are not pit against the Asian community. And I've made several videos about this. The black community has done nothing but been fully supportive of the Asian community. It's not like blacks have been pit, blacks and Asians have been put in here and we've been manipulated to go against each other. No, Asians have anti-black racism within their culture, and it goes all the way back from their homeland. They have blackface and racist commercials and all of that stuff in their homelands. They don't like black people in China. They'll call you the N-word in China and in Asia, in Asian countries. So it's not, I don't like when they say, oh, it successfully pits blacks and Asians as if we're in the same boat. No, you mean it amplifies the Asian hate that they have for black people, the black hate that they have in the Asian community. That's what it amplifies. Then it continues to say, the racist discourse around affirmative action teaches Asian students that they're being disadvantaged in college administrations in favor of black students. As such, the myth of the model minority who plays by the rules and pulls themselves up by their own bootstraps has made many Asian Americans complacent in white supremacist strategy of anti-blackness masked as fairness. Now, I think that's very interesting because there you have a lot of the Asian community who sit up there acting as if their administrations, which is proportionate to their population numbers, but their college administrations, the fact that they don't get what they feel like they deserve, they feel like, oh, that's because you're allowing these dumb black people in. You guys are allowing dumb black people in, and there are more qualified Asian people who should be in these colleges. So if you guys weren't allowing all of these stupid black people, there could be more Asians in there. And to be honest, it would be an overrepresentation of the Asian community because the Asian community is pretty much fairly represented in college administrations, if not more so. And the thing is that they don't keep that energy with the white community. Now, the white community, they don't say anything about why are these colleges racist? Why are these colleges stemmed with white supremacy? They're letting white people in here who should not qualify to get into college. These white people are not smart enough to pass the administrations, but they're being let in at a higher number, mind you, at a higher number than the Asian community. The Asian community doesn't have any smoke for them, but they're looking at the black people who do get in. And it's not like black people get in just because we're black. There's a lot of black people who actually do have to study, do have to work, and do have to pass tests to actually get in. But they're looking at the black people like, okay, the small scraps that the black community gets, we want those too. We don't want to challenge the white students that get in. You don't hear these people who say, oh, Asians, we should get in, we work so hard. They don't say that they work harder than the white students. They don't say that they're smarter than the white students, but they go after the black students and they say, oh, we're smarter than the black students. But they don't say that they're smarter than the white students. They don't say that the white students are privileged and shouldn't get in. But they'll say that about the black students, the few black students that gets in. It continues to say, quote, today is a great day for Asian Americans and all Americans. Okay. When they say all Americans, they mean by default, understand the dog whistles, by default, when people say, yeah, all Americans, that really means white Americans. And there's somebody's gonna be like, what do you mean? All means everybody. Understand what they mean when they say that. When they say, yeah, all American this, that means white. Yeah, that's kind of what that means. The white Americans. That's kind of what it means. And this was said by Yuk Gonzayo, the president of the Asian American Coalition for Education, told BBC about the court's decision. Quote, this decision will preserve Metocracy, which is the bedrock of the American dream. Well, the American dream is white privilege. That's what the American dream is. All this meritocracy and fairness and everybody is so just and accountable for. No, that's not. And they know it's not. And how I know that it's not is because they don't say that about white students. They're only going to say that about black students. It continues to say, Zio is grasping here for something that doesn't exist. American meritocracy is a myth that was crafted by the powerful to excuse their role in inequality. Hard work, and you can have anything you want. But what they really mean to say is ignore all the socio-political realities that make life harder for some people, so we don't have to talk about what makes it easier for others, or how the two are inextricably linked. And I agree with this, okay, because the whole pull yourselves up by your own bootstraps, everybody, if they all work hard, everybody has the same equal chance to be successful. America is race blind. There is no racism at all. Now, mind you, you had a whole bunch of Asians from the Asian community was talking about how America was being racist to them after the C-19 pandemic. They was like, oh, the Americans, they're mistreating me. I'm getting mistreated left and right. So all that Asian racism that they said America was just flooded with and had a huge spike of completely disappeared. Now they're saying there is no racism. Now they're saying everybody is on the same even level and everybody just needs to work hard. And if you work hard and don't make excuses, then America's going to give you the same exact amount of or rate of success as they would anybody else. Your race has no factor at all in it. It's not a factor whatsoever. But they were the ones complaining about Stop Asian Hate and how America was discriminating against Asians. But I'm glad that that's over with now. But the thing is that the whole pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, and I like the way it was put. That really means ignore the socio-political realities, which really means ignore white supremacy. That's really what it means. Just ignore racism, ignore anti-black racism, ignore white supremacy, and yeah, that's it. Because when you admit that there is inequality, when you admit that society is deep-rooted with racial privilege and a racial hierarchy, then you would have to change it, because you can't have the facade of America as the home of the free and have a racial hierarchy. So what they have to do is ignore the fact that there is a racial hierarchy embedded in every system, in every institution in America. Now it continues to say, and if all this is really about people earning their place, why is race the only factor being scapegoated? And I agree. Why are they not saying, oh, take all of it away? Take the women being minorities, take that away. Notice when people talk about, benefits, social programs, all of these things, they don't ever, nobody ever, just pay attention, they don't ever say anything about women being, why should you get in because you're a woman? That's not fair. They don't say that. They don't say that about having a disability. They don't say that about being an immigrant. They don't say that about nothing else besides blackness. That's it. Blackness. Oh, how can you get in with blackness? How is blackness a factor. Now, blackness has always been a hindrance, but the fact that people want to factor it in as a positive or as something that's not a negative thing, then that's bad. Now you can factor, just like with redlining, you can factor somebody's blackness in negatively, but you can't do it if it's not negative. If you're not going to negatively factor in their race, then don't factor in their race at all. Only do it when it's bad. Is really what they want. Then it continues to say, because here's the thing, legacy administrations, donor administrations, athlete scholarships, and other form of administration preferences are affirmative action. Exactly. Because your parents donated to an administration and your parents donated to a university, should that be factored in? Nobody's complaining about that. Nobody's complaining. Because your family comes from a more wealthy background doesn't mean that you should be considered over somebody who doesn't. But nobody's complaining over that. Or because you're more athletic. Just because you can run a football, toss a basketball, because you're more athletic means that you should be considered at a higher rate than somebody who isn't athletic. But nobody's complaining about that. It's only the blackness. That's the only thing they're targeting. It continues to say, in some of the most effective kinds. I wrote in this very column about a 2021 study that found nearly half of all white students at Harvard were either athletes, had alumni parents, had donor parents, or were children from Harvard employees. And nobody wants to talk about their privilege, though. Only 57% of Harvard's white students had gotten in on merit. That's a pretty big percent. That's a pretty big percent that got in just straight off privilege. Okay? Yet somehow the courts decided 2 years later that the same school doesn't need to be intentional about diversity. Come on. But of course, this wouldn't be an American story if the people who work to throttle affirmative action weren't also the ones benefiting from it the most. Yeah, okay, let's get into it. And no one has seen more gains from anti-discrimination legislation, both in and outside college administrations, than white women. White women have made much farther social progress than any other marginalized group since the words affirmative action were first placed within the law in 1935. Yet they remain some of its strongest opponents. And the thing is that people say white women are a marginalized group. White women have not since the beginning of America. White women literally owned slaves as property. White women have never been a marginalized group of people. Were they mistreated by white people? Yeah. They were not no, they're not marginalized. I don't like it when they put white women being marginalized. It's almost putting them in the same light that black people are marginalized. No, to be totally honest, we're the ones who are marginalized. They're the ones who are on the oppressor side. They're the oppressors. They're just second place oppressors. That's what they are. Continues to say, even Justice Clarence Thomas, who has long been opposed to affirmative action and wrote that it was, quote, patently unconstitutional, was a beneficiary himself. He was happy to be accepted into and attend Yale when the school joined the affirmative action movement in the 70s and was seeking out black students to make up about 10% of the incoming class. Talk about hypocrisy. In her dissent, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson tackled the galling stupidity of ending race-based affirmative action, especially given the state of race relations in the country today. Quote, although formal race-linked legal barriers are gone, race still matters to the lived experience of all Americans in innumerable ways, and today's ruling makes things worse, not better, she wrote. Look, we're not going to big up Ketanji Brown Jackson because Ketanji Brown Jackson has not pushed anything for black people. Ketanji Brown Jackson has actually pushed things against black people. So we're not going to frame this like Ketanji Brown Jackson's black first, because she's not. She's the very opposite. Ketanji Brown Jackson is a damn coon. All right. So let's not big her up. And if the future state of higher education wasn't depressing enough, we can't forget the big picture. This decision about affirmative action comes amid a gradual rolling back of several laws that protect society's most vulnerable people, really, including abortion rights, okay, gun safety laws, voting rights, even no-fault divorce. Okay, no. See, this is the all lives matter stuff. Listen, gun safety law, they didn't take, when did affirmative action take gun safety off the law? Every single state in America still has gun safety laws. Every American citizen still has the right to vote. When they talk about voting rights, no, they're saying that you need to prove that you're an American citizen to vote, which you should by default anyway. That's the only way you should be eligible to vote. You know, what are you doing if you can't prove you're an American citizen? How can you vote? So they're not restricting any voting rights. No fault divorce. I mean, have a reason to get a divorce, damn it. I mean, come on. And even if you want to say you have an issue with them rolling back on certain things, I don't like how it's being framed. Yeah, the most vulnerable, society's most vulnerable people. No, don't, because that's that all lives mattering. Everybody is vulnerable. Society is racist to everybody equally. No, it's not. It's not at all. And then finishing this off, these efforts to diminish women's autonomy, which is abortion, women's autonomy, and smother the rights of racialized people, whatever that means, aren't an anomaly. They're a bitter taste of what's to come. Now, what is, and I don't like, first off, I don't like this. I don't like the way it's being framed. This is being framed as if saying the rights to get an abortion and the rights for black people to live as human beings are the same. They are not the same. I don't like because when they talk about black issues and they talk about everybody's issues and frame it as if all of this is the same level of severity. This is the same level of importance, and that's not the truth. Now, here's the thing. Affirmative action, if we're going to be honest, if we know the history of it, affirmative action was always meant for our people. That was the original design. The whole concept of affirmative action is because our people who were rightfully qualified were being denied based off of anti-blackness. That is why, okay? It wasn't to benefit everybody else. Now, everybody else were able to benefit from it because it was the law was set for black, and then it turned into a minority thing. And then everybody and their mama started qualifying as a minority. But originally, it was supposed to be for us. But once everybody started qualifying as a minority, quote unquote, then black people, the people it was originally supposed to be for, black people started getting filtered at the bottom, and black people got pushed to the back of the line of benefits for affirmative action. So at the end of the day, affirmative action, whether it's here or whether it's not, is not like it's going to affect us that much, because you guys forced black people to get to the back of the line when it came to the benefits for affirmative action in the first place. So the damage that the loss of affirmative action is going to be is not really going to be for us as black people, especially foundational black Americans, because we were the last people receiving any sorts of benefits from it in the first place. But I find it very interesting that the narrative goes, black people only get into college because colleges need a certain percent of black people, and let them tell it, no black people at all are smart enough to make it into college. All of them who apply to college, if they get denied, that's only because a black person, a stupid black person, is able to get into school. They're all smart, they're all qualified. None of them who get denied are rightfully denied any college they apply to. The only colleges that deny them, the only reason for them being denied is because they have to let these dumb black people in. That's the story that they tell. Now, there's scandals that go on. There was a scandal a few years ago of white and Asian parents paying the colleges, paying the teachers, and paying the professors so they can adjust their test scores so they can get into college or they can pass colleges. None of the people, and it was a lot of celebrities too, well-named people, millionaires who are paying for their dumb kids to get into college or to stay in college, and none of them at all were black. All of these college scandals that pop up, notice how none of them are ever black, because when black people go to college, black people actually deserve to go to college. Black people actually worked, and black people actually legitimately passed those tests. In a lot of the cases, the black people who make it into college, they're more qualified than their non-black counterparts. But that's not the story they tell. They have this anti-blackness mentality, so they want to blame black people for literally everything. But family, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. What do you think about the affirmative action, going away as far as the colleges are concerned? What do you think about affirmative action, period? What do you think about what they have to say about affirmative action being good for Asian Americans? How do you think is going to affect us as black Americans? What do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. Also, you can be following me on my various social media pages, links in the description, but it's Afro Elite on Instagram and the Afro Elite on Twitter. Now, with that being said, my brothers and my sisters, be one salute to every single last one of you all, and you all have a good one.